to have you with us on the Monday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in the studios alongside the one, the only, Mr. Tyler Keefe. What an amazing weekend weather-wise.
Oh, yes, a fantastic weekend weather-wise. Nice and sunny. It was unnaturally warm for the middle of November, so it was nice to get back out for one last bit of warmth and no humidity either before the cold season is upon us.
And we'll take it because I think, was it last year around this time we had that crazy snowstorm with like 7 inches of snow? And this year we're having record warm temperatures, and it is going to be sticking around the next day or two. I know my husband is like, I'm playing golf today.
Yeah, no, it's great for that. I saw on my phone yesterday, it was I got some reminder. It was like, hey, well, 1 year ago today, you took these pictures, and I had a picture. One of them was from just about a year ago today, actually, I think it was, where it was a picture of we have a loading dock ramp at the back of our building, and it was covered with snow, as was the parking lot. I believe it was a snow day. When it's a snow day, they don't plow the lot. Oh. So when we come in and it's just, and it's snowing heavily, but it's not quite covered yet, by the end of the day, it's covered, and it can be tough to get out sometimes. Now, of course, we do get that plowed on off days, but at that time, it wasn't the case.
Well, plus, too, if you're one of the first people on the list or you're the last, it takes a while for it to get in and out. But I do remember we had the crazy snowstorm early, but then we didn't have snow again. If it's going to snow, you need to snow on Christmas. We want it, we'll take snow from December 20th to January 5th.
Of course.
Let us have a white Christmas, enjoy the festivities of the holiday, and then let's move on.
Right.
But we've had incredible weather, and I will say, I took my dog to Starbucks. I try to take her to Starbucks on Sunday or Saturday morning so she can get a puppuccino. And they already have their holiday drinks out.
It's too early.
And I get the fall pumpkin spice. I'm down with that. But we're still in fall, and they already have out their Christmas drinks. But it was like 70-something degrees. I'm not getting a peppermint mocha.
No, it's not holiday time yet. No.
Right.
No, it's too early. I saw a great meme over the weekend when my cousins posted a meme to social media, and it was a picture of a shed, and it said, "This is a picture of my Christmas tree." That's right. That's right, because it's November. It's too early. And it's just a picture of the shed. It's still in the shed. It's still November.
So many of my neighbors took advantage of the beautiful weather, though, to hang their holiday lights and their holiday decorations outside. So you have some houses that still have Halloween or fall. Like I switched my Halloween over to fall. But then you have others that now have like full-blown Christmas lights and decorations out. It's like, we're confused in our neighborhood.
Yeah, it was nice. I saw one person in the apartment complex I live in that it was one of the buildings across the way from mine that had put lights up on their balcony, and it was really nice to be able to see in the back 40 of the complex as I'm walking in from my mailbox last night at 6 o'clock when it was darker than 11 o'clock over the summer.
Right?
It's insane.
Someone's trying to call us there.
You just hit the button under.
We're not picking up your phone calls. This one here, right?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, now no one's calling. They're just going to get a busy signal.
So it is weird. So I have to ask you, since we had our daylight saving time switch over, which really, let's just do away with that.
It's the most pointless thing ever. I mean, that's one thing Arizona's gotten right. It's just saying, no, we're done with this. Why can't we all just be done with this? Farmers are out all day anyway. They don't need that extra light as much nowadays. I would assume. I don't know.
But and on top of that, so if someone said, I was like, oh my gosh. I remember going up to talk to my husband, and Fox 2 was on the news upstairs, and I was like, wow, it's 10 o'clock already. No, it was only like 6:30 something.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, this time change has me all wacky doodle right now. But they're like, it's only an hour. I was like, it's not that. It's so dark already. It makes you feel like it's, late in the evening.
Yeah, it was like yesterday. I met up with my brother at like 11 o'clock, 11:30, played a couple games of basketball. I was out there for maybe until 1 o'clock-ish. I had another appointment, had to run some errands, and then I was helping my dad out later on in the afternoon around 4:30, and the sun's starting to set, and I'm like, oh man, where's my day going? It's almost over. The sun's setting. I look down at the clock. It's like, oh, it's only 5 o'clock. It's early. And then by the time I left his place, it was like 6:30 at night. It was pitch black, and here I thought it was, oh man, I'm not going to get any sleep tonight. No.
Oh, look at that. See,
it's a wild world we live in.
It is, and it all takes a toll on us. It's like it will take a good 2-3 weeks to get into a new routine and get used to this super dark early evenings. I hate this time of year. But we have a lot to get to today on this Monday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. As far as the headlines, the city of Warren making this big announcement today that they have now closed their city hall to the public. That started this morning after at least 24 city employees contracted COVID-19. The spike in the virus comes after cases during the pandemic have climbed in recent weeks and people have let down their guard. Hundreds of people have come into City Hall to hand in mail-in ballots and to cast their vote for the presidential election. The virus has infected people working in several Warren City departments, including 9 cases in the Public Safety Department. That'd be their police department. 9 cases in the district court. 5 cases in another department. The court, City Hall, and police department are all going to be disinfected. The Warren Community Center and libraries, however, do remain open at this time. I think we're going to see more of this in the coming days, especially this week because of the election. So many people were in public places choosing to have their voices heard and by voting. And so many places that you did do that was your city hall.
Yeah, it's not surprising to see this happen. Unfortunate, definitely, but not surprising, especially in a city as busy as Warren and the city hall as busy as Warren's city hall. Wouldn't be very surprising either to see this in other municipalities or have them revert back to what many of them were doing earlier on in the pandemic, where they either completely closed their city hall or had only allowed people in by appointment and had people waiting outdoors. It's very possible that we could end up going back to that as more precautions are being taken due to this, as of now, looks like potentially severe spike in COVID-19 cases.
Yeah, and so and just a reminder, just take precautions when you go out because the cases are spiking right now. I check the Oakland County Health Department's page every day, and you could check by zip code. I don't know if people realize that, so you could check your zip code. For us, it's Kegel Harbor and Sylvan Lake are the 2 that are combined in us. Right. And I remember for the longest time back in March, April, that time frame, we only had less than, I think, 10 cases. Last time I checked, last week, we had like almost 80 cases, which still in 2 cities is not very high, but still we are seeing a big spike right now in the area. So take the precautions. Over at Oakland University, they put its men's and women's basketball program on hold after the 2 coaches tested positive for COVID-19. University said Greg Campy, head men's basketball coach, we've had him on the show here, as well as Jeff Tungate. He's the head women's basketball coach. They both are COVID positive. Both are reportedly experiencing mild symptoms and are doing well. Both programs are preparing for the start of the 2020 season, which is less than 3 weeks away, and the basketball programs are taking the necessary steps and precautions to return to play safely. So we have 2 head coaches here, and I also wonder, too, I believe that they're getting tested on a pretty regular basis over there, so I wonder if they even realized they had symptoms and the test came back positive.
Yeah, it may have been a case where they weren't having symptoms, but on one day they came in, got their random test or got their weekly or monthly or whatever the case is test, and it came back positive, and now they got to take these precautions. That's certainly one of the great fears of these athletics teams at any university as they're awaiting their next season, is that they have this setback. A, because it's a setback in their training, preparing for the season, and B, and more importantly, it puts the health of their team at risk, which goes beyond just the coaching staff and the players. It's training staff, it's equipment management staff, it's those that are at these arenas, whether they are having fans in there or not. It still takes a giant team at these arenas to put these games on, to maintain the floors, to maintain electrical equipment and run scoreboard and be able to broadcast these games also. So there are a lot of people that are potentially at risk when there is an outbreak on a certain team. So it's a huge setback across the board. And of course, it creates an unfortunate situation on the campus and at those facilities.
Well, and so much effort has gone into getting these teams back and playing that the last thing you want to see is any type of outbreak. We are starting to see it more now than ever amongst the NFL teams. We had Matt Stafford, who was on the list. I think it was a family member or someone close to them had an exposure,
Yes.
so he was on the list for a while. And so you're seeing this more and more often. I was speaking with someone who's a volleyball coach for a junior high school, and they had to cancel their season because one of the players got sick. And the sad thing about this, the other teammates were then being very, let's say not nice, basically bullying the one student that did test positive for her having to end that season. And obviously it's not just one player that they base these decisions on. So we have to remember, in the midst of all of this, still be kind, people, especially, some of these kids, junior high, it's so tough on them.
Yeah, and for some of them, this is the only time that they in their life that they will be playing competitive sports or in a team environment like this. Not all these athletes at the high school level or the college level are going to go on and play at the next level beyond that. And I mean, even on Friday, we had a situation where we were broadcasting, of course, the West Bloomfield football game, their playoff football game last week, and on the other side of the bracket, one of the other districts, another team that we play every year in our division, Rochester Adams, they had, of course, made the playoffs. They're having a down year, but every team made the playoffs, and they were being pretty competitive. They had won their first round game. They were just about to play their second round game against one of the contenders on their side in Davison, and they had to forfeit their game because they had a COVID-19 outbreak within their team or within their school, and that ends their season. So for a lot of those seniors, this may have been their last opportunity to get playoff football in, or last opportunities to impress scouts at the next level and be able to be seen in a high-pressure environment and show what they can do, and then their season is just all of a sudden done. So it's an emotional time, too, for these student athletes that are playing these games that they love, probably at the highest level for most of them that they will ever play at, whether that be junior high, whether that be in high school. And when their season is cut off like that, especially if they know that I tested positive and now my whole team can't play anymore, that's already a big enough weight. You don't need to be a jerk and pile on to them.
And what's so hard about this, remember, typically there are HIPAA laws and rules and regulations in place that you can't talk about someone's health record. But in this case, due to COVID and the spread of the virus and through contact tracing, so even sometimes when they don't publicly ID an individual, it's not hard to figure out exactly who it is. And that's how this happens, where then people are openly talking about it. But you have to remember, if you walk outside your home, you are exposed to the virus. That's why I like to say, anytime you leave, you're going to be exposed. So you do what you can to take the precautions. You wear a mask. You go through, for us, it's the hand sanitizer. Still an issue trying to find Clorox wipes right now.
Yeah.
Or even the disinfectant spray. That's a little bit hard to find right now. But, like we talked about, so usually I'm the first one in the building, and before you guys even get here, I wipe down all the door handles, all the light knobs, the thermometer where we're taking our temperature. I wipe down everything in the building, in the studio, before you guys even get here, and then do it throughout the morning as well, so that we can try to stay safe as well, because you can't blame someone if they get the virus. I pretty much feel like most of us at some point in time are now going to get it because of the spread. It's impossible unless we're living in bubbles. And you can get it if you go to the grocery store. You can get it, if you go to the drugstore, wherever you go, the virus is going to be out there. Just try to take precautions and be nice to one another. But here's some good news regarding the virus. So a little bit of something on an upswing this Monday morning. Pfizer says an early peek at its vaccine data suggests shots may be 90% effective at Preventing COVID-19, indicating the company is on track later this month to file an emergency use application with U.S. regulators. Monday's announcement doesn't mean, however, a vaccine is imminent. Authorities have stressed it's unlikely any vaccine will arrive much before the end of the year, and limited initial supplies will be rationed. Volunteers in the final stage studies and the researchers don't know who received the real vaccine or a dummy shot. But a week after their second required dose, Pfizer's study began counting the number who developed COVID-19 symptoms and were confirmed to have the virus. So the stock market is also reacting very well to this news. So it does look like, and Pfizer is just one of a handful of other companies that are in the midst of trying to develop a vaccine. And it does look like we have some promising news on the backside of this. But obviously, when the vaccine comes out, the first people it's probably going to go to is going to be healthcare workers, and then eventually it will work its way down through the community.
Yeah, and I read an article on this morning also, and they had said while these initial numbers are coming back showing upwards of 90% effectiveness in battling the virus, they even said, the Pfizer had even said, that's abnormal for these initial tests, and that very well may change. They expect it, frankly, to change as those tests go forward, but if it continues to be positive results like this in their attempts to create this vaccine, then they could have a certain number of them released in 2020 and then a larger number to the general public in 2021. But still, as you said, a long way away from that.
So if you head over to civiccentertv.com, click on the coronavirus tab. That's where we post the new headlines each and every morning, but also you'll see links to various resources for you to check some of the information directly yourself as well. We have the CDC, as well as the state of Michigan, Oakland County, and all of our local municipalities. So we try to make it easy for you to be able to get that information directly yourself. So civiccentertv.com, that's a good place to get it. Tyler and I are going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast, and when we come back, still a lot to get to. Today on the show, we'll be talking about maybe starting up your own company during this time. Detroit Venture Partners will be joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. What's it like for them? We'll also be speaking with the Rotary Club. They have a big event coming up for Thanksgiving. How is all of that being impacted here in the middle of the coronavirus? And then we'll be speaking with the chair for United Way and ending our show talking a little history for all of you car buffs out there. So we'll be heading over to the Ford plant, discussing some of that. And what does all of this mean for so many of these museums and organizations that rely on donations and admission to help them survive? How are they doing it in the middle of a pandemic? So we'll have that and so much more coming up on the Oakland County Megacast.
As rivals, we don't always see eye to eye.
Like who scored the best recruits?
Who's gonna be who?
And whether we wear green
or blue.
But one thing we can all agree on to help stop the spread of COVID-19. Wear a mask.
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 The ball's in your court, Michigan.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now, it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
to have you with us on the Monday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in the studios alongside Mr. Tyler Keefe. Great to have you with us. Tyler and I are here Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, working to bring you the latest information on the coronavirus and all of the various entities that are directly impacted by this ongoing crisis. As a reminder, you can catch us on Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM, The Biff. Also, if you do have cable still today, thank you, because a part of your programming bill does go to help support shows such as this. You can catch us on Channel 15 if you have Comcast, Channel 99 on AT&T, and we also want to give a big shout out to the Greater West Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce for allowing us to stream today's edition of the Oakland County Megacast live on their Facebook page. So thank you to them. So many businesses right now and so many individuals are having to rethink how they live and how they do business. For some people, that may mean if you've lost your business or if you've been downsized, it could be a good time for you to jump headfirst into those plans of trying to do your own business and becoming your own boss. Joining us right now on the Oakland County Megacast is Gabe Karp. He is the operating partner for Detroit Venture Partners. Gabe, thank you so much for being with us on the Oakland County Megacast.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Are you finding there are any individuals that maybe their life has been changed due to the pandemic, so now's the time that they're, kind of going out on that limb and deciding to start up their own business?
We are. I mean, you're seeing that, I think, across the country, and in Detroit. There's just a lot of excitement in the startup community in particular, look, the economy's been hit pretty hard. Coronavirus has really impacted every day, everything we do every day. And one of the silver linings is that it's really motivating some people who have thought, one of these days I should probably go out and start my own business, and it's a good motivator.
So, Gabe, for those not familiar with Detroit Venture Partners, what exactly do you all do over there?
So Detroit Venture Partners is a venture capital firm, and it's essentially the venture capital arm of the Quicken Loans family of companies. And venture capital is a little bit different from what you might traditionally think about starting up a small business. Venture-backed businesses are typically ones that certainly start small, but they're intended to grow and scale and get really big, as opposed to running a lifestyle type business. So at Detroit Venture Partners, we typically see technology type businesses. That's where our focus primarily is. And certainly there's also an emphasis on Detroit companies in the local region.
I recently saw I think it was a documentary on Netflix or Amazon Prime that was featuring some of the young entrepreneurs in the city of Detroit, and I was surprised to see a lot is going on in the city of Detroit. How have we become a hub and an attraction to some of these young people wanting to start up these tech companies?
Yeah, it's remarkable, the transformation that has gone on in Detroit in terms of, particularly in the startup community. You go back 10 years, maybe even a little less than 10 years ago, there was really nothing going on in terms of the startup community. In terms of venture capital, there were 0 venture capital funds inside the city of Detroit. What was traditionally something that people considered, well, that's only in Silicon Valley or maybe on the East Coast, and it was unthinkable to do something like that here. Over the past 10 years, and really in the past 5 or 6, there's been a dramatic shift. There's now lots of venture capital available at different stages of investment of companies inside Detroit. There's a thriving community of people who are in technology type jobs in other companies, maybe much larger companies, that can have created a talent pool. So I'm talking about software developers, engineers, front-end developers, that sort of thing. And there's a really active community in Detroit with a lot of young people who are networking. There's a lot of it's very easy to find what jobs are open. It's a really exciting time.
Gabe Karp with us on the Oakland County Megacast. He's the operating partner for Detroit Venture Partners. How do you pick and choose which companies you're going to back? Because I would imagine you're getting pitches every single day.
Yes, definitely getting a lot of pitches. So we have a specific focus, as I said. Certainly, we're partial to founders in Detroit who are willing to move to Detroit, not just because we're going to invest in them, but because they see the value of starting a company in the Detroit area. So, there's a lot of different ways to look at it, investments. And without trying to get too deep in the weeds, sometimes the analogy a lot of people use is horse, jockey, and race. So you look at the horse as the type of business that somebody wants to start. The race would be the industry in which they're moving into, and the jockey is the individual founder or founders who are, gonna ride that horse in that race. And I think jockey is probably the most important. And that's not to say that the type of company, the industry that they're going into aren't also very important, because you want to make sure that there's opportunity there. But one of the reasons to focus on the jockey is that starting a business is hard, and it's lonely and it's painful. And as you start ramping up a business, you're just going to run straight into a brick wall at 100 miles an hour, and you may not have even seen it coming. And the question is, are you the kind of jockey who's going to get back up, dust yourself off, and get right back at it, and adapt to what's going on in the market? Pivot into a new product line, into a new model, whatever it may be. You want somebody who's really going to be resilient and adaptive to what's happening.
So on top of that, so much of a new business sparks from collaboration. And we're in the middle of a pandemic when we're being told to avoid one another. How has that lack of being able to just bounce thoughts and ideas off of one another impacting the growth of some of these companies?
Yeah, I think one of the very pleasant surprises is how effective we've all been in a remote work environment. For example, we're conducting this interview over Zoom right now. I would say I probably spend 60% of my day just on Zoom calls. And I gotta say, when the shutdowns started happening in March, there was I don't know if there was concern. There was certainly a question of what's this going to be like, and are we going to be as effective? And I don't think we've skipped a beat, at least at DDP. And a lot of the companies that are in our portfolio that I work with the founders there, things really just continued moving right along. And in fact, what they have found is a number of businesses are saving a lot of money on travel and expense budgets. They don't have to travel to other cities to sell into clients. They can just conduct Zoom calls. I do think there's something missing in terms of hanging around the water cooler or coffee machine or whatever you want to call it. Those random bump-ins in the office during the day obviously aren't happening. But I know a number of companies, including ours, we just have a standing half-hour Zoom call every day. And a lot of it's to talk about some things that we're continuing to work on, but it's also just time to just decompress and talk about what's going on in the news or sports or personal stuff. And that sort of organic interaction has continued virtually. So it's kind of exciting because I think what some people thought initially might be a limiting factor has actually been quite the opposite. It's somewhat expansive.
Gabe Karp with us. He's the operating partner at Detroit Venture Partners, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. And Gabe, you mentioned the cost-cutting benefits of remote work over the course of the pandemic. Have you also found, at least within the companies that DVP oversees or is involved with, have you seen that it's also increased productivity or maybe reduced productivity? What's been the result of that in terms of remote work?
Sure. It's been somewhat of a mixed bag, but I would say for many of the companies that that I'm involved with, there really hasn't been a difference at all, because before the pandemic, there already was remote work procedures in place. We have companies that may be headquartered in one place, but they've hired people in other cities. And it's kind of just the normal way that they've been working. I would say that on, you mentioned overseas work, for companies that are doing a lot of software engineering, software development, there has been an outsourcing model that's really probably a decade old now, where a lot of maybe like chunks of coding and some software development or product development that is lower level can be outsourced overseas, India, Ukraine, even in South America, Central America, and then that work is done maybe overnight, not in Central America, but overnight in Ukraine or India, and then the next day, the dev team in the U.S. who's inside the company can pick up with that base amount of work that was done and really refine it and build it. That's not a new model to the pandemic, but it's certainly one that has been enabled and certainly not impacted by the pandemic.
So as you had mentioned, so many people are working remotely right now, and while there are a lot of benefits to it, I worry about the downfall that the long-term impact of working remotely can have on the city of Detroit itself, because Detroit Venture Partners, founded by Dan Gilbert, Quicken Loans, huge supporter of the city of Detroit, and moving the team back down into the city of Detroit. He and the Illages are, largely being credited with Detroit's comeback and the growth that we're seeing in the city of Detroit. But now if we have people working remotely, what's going to be the long-term impact on the city of Detroit and the area businesses and the restaurants? Because if I'm sitting at home, I'm not going to meet my coworkers, after work for that happy hour drink, or I'm not going to the new restaurant and picking up my lunch. So from that standpoint, I know it's not really in your wheelhouse, but are there any discussions about what this could mean long-term for the city of Detroit?
Yeah, that's certainly a topic of discussion, and there's just tremendous excitement around all of it. And the viewpoint, well, I'll tell you, the viewpoint that I have is that this pandemic is really bad. It's difficult, but it is temporary. And we're already, the news coming out. I heard you just talking about developments on the vaccine. This is whether it's 4 months from now, 6 months from now, 8 months from now, it's going to end. And when it does, you're going to see people flooding back into the city. I think that the benefits that we see with remote working and virtual conferences and that sort of thing, that's going to continue, but it'll just be a hybrid. Look, I think it's a great thing for businesses to be able to offer that kind of flexibility to employees. Maybe they don't come to work 9 to 5 every single day of the week. Maybe some days they can spend more hours at home, but on a regular basis, every day and every week, you're going to have people inside the physical offices of a business, and there may also be remote workers at the same time, and they'll probably shuffle in and out and trade off. So the restaurant scene downtown, we think about live, work, and play, and creating that type of community in Detroit. There's no real concern that that's in any jeopardy in the long term, and in fact, the excitement continues to build, and no pun intended in the word build. We see construction going on downtown, and one of the largest, potentially. I'm not sure if it's going to be the tallest building. Sometimes it is. It depends on who the last tenant is. But at the old Hudson site, that's a massive project, and that is full steam ahead. You're not going to be building that if there's a concern that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, everybody's going to be tucked away in their homes working.
Gabe Karp with us on the Oakland County Megacast. He's the operating partner for Detroit Venture Partners. So knowing that, because I do wonder, in some ways, if I'm a new employer, I can offer hybrid or remote learning, some type of hybrid situation like we're seeing going on with the schools right now, to our employees. So it could be a selling point to some of them for you to be able to get better employees or more qualified employees that maybe wouldn't be interested in driving all the way into the city of Detroit or wherever your offices may be. But long term down the road coming out of the pandemic, what do you think? How is this long-term going to change the business scene and what we're actually looking for as far as businesses in the COVID-19 crisis?
Sure. I think business is going to continue to grow. I know we're in the middle of a big political change with the election and a new president-elect. That regardless of how anyone feels about politics or who is in the White House, no one has ever lost betting on the U.S. economy long term. And when we look at the city of Detroit, for example, which is a great microcosm of what we're seeing elsewhere, Detroit has undergone some very difficult times in the past and is in a renaissance of some real exciting growth. So we're absolutely going to continue to see more and more companies starting in Detroit, coming from outside the area, moving to Detroit. One of the advantages of the city and the area is that the cost of living is lower than in Silicon Valley. And that impacts, that allows founders of companies to ramp up really high quality teams for a fraction of the cost of what you'd be paying out in Mountain View, California, or somewhere like that. Not to give those cities a hard time. And then, of course, you got to remember that we have amazing world-class educational institutions: University of Michigan, Michigan State University, and the list goes on, pumping out really amazing talent year after year. And whereas maybe 10 years ago that talent would leave and go to the coasts or maybe even to Chicago, now they're staying. And in fact, you're seeing people from outside the region that didn't even go to those schools, went to other great schools in other areas of the country, coming into Detroit. So yeah, we're going to have more remote work. As you mentioned, that's simply a perk to be able to offer that kind of flexibility to people coming to work for your company if you want to start one. And again, while that is convenient and there are perks there, it's also just so great to be in an office and be with people when it's lunchtime, go out into the street and go to a restaurant, support local businesses. People just enjoy doing that. And while sometimes they may want to just chill out in their house, other times they definitely want to get out in the world and interact. So, very, very long roundabout answer to to kind of the question of, well, what do we see moving forward?
Gabe Karp with us. He's the operating partner at Detroit Venture Partners with us today on the Oakland County Megacast. And Gabe, you were also with us recently at the Greater West Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce's Virtual Innovative Business Event, or VIBE, where you delivered a presentation on our main stage called the Conflict Cleanse. And during these times where people are under so much pressure in their daily life and just from what's going on in the world, on top of that in the office, you can see a situation where conflict in the workplace could potentially become more of a detriment than it would have been previously. But there is good conflict and bad conflict. Based on what you presented, and of course anybody can see that presentation from VIBE on our YouTube page, youtube.com/CivicCenterTV15. What is good conflict in the workplace, especially during COVID-19, versus bad conflict, and how can one be productive and other be extremely detrimental at the worst?
Sure. Whenever human beings interact, there's going to be conflict. And good conflict is the kind of conflict that promotes growth. And that's growth for us as individuals, it's growth as business, it's let's say in the workplace, maybe there's a disagreement between two people about how a project is moving along. Maybe someone's kind of annoyed with another person, saying, you know, that person's not really carrying their weight. I would say bad conflict would be for that person to hold it in and just let it fester and build, and that creates some resentment. I think healthy conflict is promoted by an environment where someone who's annoyed with something or has an issue, wants to get something off their chest, they're free to do it without the stigma of being associated with, you know, being that person who initiates conflict. Conflict's a good thing, and if we have a difference of opinion on anything, I think it's great when we can attack our ideas and attack the issues and attack the problems and not attack character or personality or, you know, us as who we are. And that's kind of that's the big difference. You know, if I've got a problem and it's an uncomfortable conversation and I need to bring it up with somebody, as long as I approach it with respect, and I am not only respectful of the other person, but I'm respectful of sort of the environment that we're in. And I say, hey, look, I have an issue. This is the issue. I'd like to discuss it. And that enables a free exchange of ideas.
Yeah, I think one of the good things coming out of this crisis, it's no longer business as usual, because too many times individuals and businesses get so comfortable in the way that they do things. It's like, this is the way we've always done it, instead of being forced to learn new ways and to grow. So that could be a good positive that comes out of this, because there is no company and no business right now operating the same way that they were prior to COVID-19.
Yeah, I would say, you know, that kind of touches on another point that's worth making, and that is that people make mistakes. We're human beings, so that's just going to happen. And that's certainly going to happen in the workplace. And sometimes people make mistakes that are bad, and maybe they cost the company a client or you know, even worse. But one of the problems with, one of the big misconceptions in business is that conflict is a bad thing that should be avoided at all costs. And mistakes or contradictory opinions, they're frowned upon, and they're seen as badges of shame. When in fact, the ability to raise an issue and talk about a mistake is what's going to make that company grow. Because, I mean, think about it like this. If you're in a culture where mistakes are frowned upon, and when and there's a heavy emphasis on that, if somebody does make a mistake, they'll be highly motivated to keep it covered up for as long as possible. But there's another thing that's also important, and that's to honor candor and accountability. Because again, we're human. We are going to make mistakes. That's inevitable. And one of the true tests of character of not only individuals, but an organization is, how do we react once we recognize that we've made a mistake? Now, that's not to say that you know, quality execution isn't also important and should be valued. But you want to have an environment where when someone makes a mistake, it's okay to call it out to that person. And that person doesn't feel threatened when called out. And there are lots of things that can be done in a culture to make that more comfortable.
We only grow when we do make mistakes, and we learn and we grow from those mistakes. Knowing that, I know that you back several young companies. Any tips on what types of companies an individual should look at investing in right now?
Yeah, I mean, generally we look at companies that, as I mentioned before, in tech, the more tech type stuff. And companies that enable businesses to grow and scale. You know, and let me sort of decode that. We're seeing a lot of industries that are continually being disrupted. It's sort of like each industry's turn to be disrupted. Right now, the financial industry is seeing disruption in various areas. Banking is an example. You know, it used to be that there were only a handful of very large global banks that serviced everybody's not only business but personal banking needs. And now you're seeing other businesses popping up all the time. You know, you're seeing in the mainly millennials kind of leading the charge in how money is just being moved. Things like Venmo and Chase Pay or Zelle. You know, the fact that kids kids. The fact that young adults don't even really carry that much cash anymore. Those are all businesses that saw an industry and something that's been done for decades, if not even centuries, about how money moves, and just said, we're going to disrupt the whole thing. We're going to make it so you don't even need cash anymore. And lots of other industries have evolved and developed and progressed. So we have hardware. We all carry around these phones that do just such amazing things. So on top of those phones, you can run entirely new businesses, like example with money. We're seeing similar things in insurance, how to get car insurance, how to get home insurance. We're seeing, in the medical field, DDP doesn't look so much in the medical field, but, prescription drugs online. That was really unthinkable 10 years ago. I could continue doing this for probably a couple hours, so.
But no, I even saw a special yesterday, and they were engineers were in a hospital trying to help them streamline their process for even how to stock their supplies. So and it's all led by these, like you said, young kids. They're not kids, but they are young, 20-something-year-olds that are really leading the charge in this new world of this tech company. I mean, we really should have seen the writing on the wall when Honest John, the homeless guy at 8 Mile and Woodward, now has a square. So if you pull up, he's not asking you for cash. When you say, oh, I don't have any cash, he's like, that's okay, I have a square. Donate to me. So when the homeless are getting on board with this, it really is time for the rest of the world to try to jump on board with changing technology as well. And I'll leave you with this one last question. Because while you are focused on new young businesses, and I would imagine a lot of those employees are also on the younger side, what about older people who now have a boss that's like 28, 29, 30 years old? How do they bridge that gap to try to relate to the younger generation, if that younger generation becomes your boss?
Yeah, and that's that's just the reality of the world we're in right now. But I got to tell you, I've seen really great matchups between maybe a young entrepreneur who grown a business and has these amazing ideas, and then when you pair that entrepreneur with someone who's older and who's been around and has some maturity, has experience, and can leverage that experience. And yes, there's a hierarchy there, but the person from the older generation is able to really help the young entrepreneur and see things from a different perspective. And when the young entrepreneurs are open and receptive to getting that kind of feedback, it's great. That's a 2 + 2 = 5 scenario. So those are the opportunities. Now, look, I do understand that there's a pride and an ego thing there, because it used to be that everybody's boss was always a lot older, and it just takes an adjustment. And when we can look at anyone, regardless of their age, and appreciate whatever value they're bringing to the table, and we can kind of carve out some space to show the value that we also can bring, a lot of those negative feelings just go away. They really do. It does require that everybody have a healthy dose of curiosity going not only to every relationship, but every conversation. And that makes things a lot better. I mean, I'm going to go off on a tangent real quick, because at that live event, they were talking about, the political discourse and how it's so hard to have a conversation with someone that's even really close to you, a friend or loved one, about politics, because it's such an emotionally charged issue. And what I have found is that when people enter a political discussion with the goal of curiosity, it changes everything. And if you have a minute, I can sort of explain that. What I typically see, the sun is coming through the window, so I keep backing up. What I typically see is that people enter into these political discussions with the mindset of, I have an opinion, I know I'm right. My goal is to basically convince this other person I'm talking to that I am right. And so my goal is that they're going to say, you know what, after everything you said, I have decided to change my opinion. Well, when two people go into the conversation with that same goal, you're just going to get a lot of headbutting. But if instead of going into a conversation with the goal of trying to persuade the other person to adopt your point of view, you instead take the approach that, you know what, I'm just going to be curious about this. I want to understand what this person thinks and why they think it. And that's going to promote all kinds of behavior that you don't even need to think about. You'll start asking questions. Your tone of voice will be different because you'll be coming from a place of curiosity than one of persuasion. And the reality is that when you enter any conversation with curiosity like that, you leave that conversation smarter. You just know more. So that's sort of one way to deal with these difficult political conversations. And then going back to what you were talking about, when you have somebody who's maybe got a boss who's a lot younger than they are, when you approach the dynamic with curiosity to learn, it just makes you smarter, and it encourages the other person to do the same.
Well, those are great words to leave on. Thank you so much for sharing them and your wisdom and all your knowledge as well. Gabe Karp with us on the Oakland County Megacast. He is the operating partner for Detroit Venture Partners. I know this has been a crazy time for you and your team as well. Happy Zoom Day, as we've been saying every single day since the beginning of this pandemic. It'll be nice when we can all get together, and maybe one day we can have you actually in the studio as well.
Great. Thanks so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Tyler and I are going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast. Still a lot to get to in the next hour.
Hi, I'm Dr. Faust, the medical director for the Oakland County Health Division. The most important thing you can do to prevent the spread of illness is to wash your hands thoroughly and often. Follow these 6 easy steps every time you wash your hands. Step 1, turn on the sink and wet your hands with warm water. Step 2, apply soap to your hands and lather between your fingers, under your nails, and the front and back of your hands and wrists. Step 3, wash your hands by scrubbing them together for at least 20 seconds. Step 4, rinse your hands with warm, clean water. And step 5, dry your hands with a clean cloth towel, a paper towel, or hot air blow dryer. If you're using a cloth towel, make sure to change it often. For handheld faucets, turn off the water using a paper towel instead of your bare hand. Step 6, if you're using a paper towel, throw it away. Practice healthy habits like washing your hands after coughing or sneezing into them to keep you and others healthy. Go to oakgov.com/health or call Nurse on Call at 1-800-848-5533 to learn more.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
The election is behind us. Next up, Thanksgiving. We are just 17 days away from Thanksgiving. And November is usually a time for us to be grateful and to give thanks. And I think we are all feeling it more so this year than ever before. And an organization that is trying to remind us all about giving back during this time is the Rotary Club. we are going to be joined now on the Oakland County Megacast by Scott Loney. He is with the West Bloomfield Rotary Club. And Renee Patitas, she is with Team Turkey Chair from Troy Rotary Club. Scott, well, Renee, you're up first. How about we go ahead and we have them in two different locations, just so everyone knows. So they're Zooming from two different locations. Renee, since you're already up, why don't we start with you? Thank you for being with us on the Oakland County Megacast.
Well, thank you so much for asking me to be on. This is exciting, and I hope that it helps more people understand the type of work we're doing in all of our communities and that they can get involved as well.
Yeah, so let's start with an overview of the Rotary Club and what you actually do each and every day.
Well, Rotary is one of the largest service organizations in the world, and yet we're unfortunately wildly unknown in many areas in North America. A lot of times when you enter any town, you'll see the big sign on the outside of town, and there's the Lions and the Kiwanis, and then there's a Rotary wheel. And we are a service organization that's 1.2 million members strong all across the globe. We've been around for over 110 years now. And basically, we focus on helping people that need help, whether that is people who are food insecure. We work with the Gates Foundation, vaccinating people around the world. We're involved in water projects for areas that cannot bring water into their own towns and villages. So there's virtually no part of the world that we are not involved in, and we're very active in our own communities.
Scott, if we can go ahead and bring you into the show now as well. How great is the need been for you and your services during this COVID-19 crisis?
Well, every year we see a need in our communities. I'm with the West Bloomfield Rotary Club, and West Bloomfield is widely known as being an affluent community, and there are a lot of people who join the Rotary Club and look abroad for opportunities to help people. It's not that they ignore the needs in our own community, but I think they don't think that they need to look in our own communities for people in need. And believe me, when you start poking around, even in West Bloomfield, you'll find plenty of people who need help. And we find them every year, and we're finding more this year because, to answer your question, the COVID crisis has made the need greater. We've always had people who move into this community because it's an aspirational community for their children to get into a good school district, and maybe they need some support in other ways. But now a lot of people are losing their jobs. People who weren't insecure last year are insecure this year. So the need is actually greater. And we're trying to fill that need at a time when it's actually harder to fill that need because, of course, as Renee and I will talk about later, it's a fundraising effort that then turns into procuring fully cooked meals that are delivered on Thanksgiving morning. You actually have to get on the road and deliver boxes of food. And some people are reluctant to do that in the coronavirus environment. And, we found ways that we think we can do this safely. But while impediments, the coronavirus, the pandemic has thrown impediments in our way, we're actually trying to increase the output of our project.
So how are you doing on volunteers? Are you short on volunteers? Could you use more?
Renee should speak more broadly. There are 5 clubs involved in this effort. It's not just us. And I can tell you that in my club here in West Bloomfield, we've gotten a great turnout. And it's not only club members, but we're getting people from local businesses that I talk about this to. People who have nothing to do with Rotary except they love the idea of sharing Thanksgiving. More than half the cars that we put on the road last year in my club were non-Rotarians, and that's going to be true again this year. I should also point out that the township government and the police department are enthusiastic supporters of this project. They just love getting out. It's an opportunity for them to work with their citizens, There's nothing quite like having a police cruiser and a van pull up in front of your house on Thanksgiving morning and 4 uniformed officers get out. It's a one time when it's good news, and the police chief just loves doing this. And he has participated for the last couple of years. I'm not going to put him on the spot this year because, of course, their participation is contingent upon their not being out on call on some urgent issue that they have to deal with. But they've said they're going to participate again this year. And so we've gotten support across the community. We can always use more. Our biggest need right now is drivers. And we have a way for people to sign up. We have a website, rotaryteamturkey.org, and there's a place for you to sign up, or they can contact me or Renee personally to participate.
So, Renee, if we could go ahead and bring you back into the show, give us an overview of Team Turkey and how many meals you hope to deliver this year.
Well, this year, before COVID, our goal was going to be even higher than last year. Last year, we delivered 359 meals to roughly 350 families in the surrounding community. This year, we are going to be doing 230 meals. And unfortunately, that is a result of funding by and large. And people are much more cautious. And at the same time, the need is greater than ever. But 230 meals is nothing to sneeze at. And these meals themselves feed 6 to 8 people. And it is a full Thanksgiving dinner down to dessert. We are looking for more drivers. I just want to reemphasize what Scott had said. If you'd like to volunteer to drive, you absolutely do not need to be a Rotarian. I can tell you that 4 people from my office have signed up just to participate and deliver meals. The Troy firefighters are bringing their entire fire truck and going to be delivering to 20 different families. The Troy Police Department will be involved. City of Rochester will have representation there. And Kroger and Myers employees often jump in and help us as well. So this is just a huge effort, and we are very, very fortunate to be able to expand our families on Thanksgiving with those that just don't have as much as some of us do right now and are feeling more food insecure. And unfortunately, what we have found is that this year, the need has been greater than ever, much bigger than we've had in the last 4 years that I have chaired this event, which still speaks to how much most of us don't realize this COVID pandemic is affecting families dramatically.
And Renee, you have participated in previous years. This year is not going to be like a typical Thanksgiving. We do not have the lions. We do not have the turkey trot. We do not have the parade going on downtown. So with that, a lot of typical traditions are going to be changing. So is this a time for families to maybe pick up volunteering for this event or other organizations on Thanksgiving? A good way and a good time for them to start a new family tradition?
Oh, absolutely. I can tell you that you just gave me goosebumps to even just think about it. Every year that I've been involved with this program, it's a couple of hours on our Thanksgiving morning that we actually get to expand our family circle. And it is one of the most rewarding service projects I've ever been involved with. And I hope that it continues to grow year after year. And it's not about us, and I want to clarify this because I do think it's important. We're not doing this as charity for people who are, say, less fortunate. That's not the purpose of this. We all have different experiences in life and times when things are tougher than others. And this is an opportunity for families to get involved and expand their understanding of giving thanks and what they have. And I would encourage anybody to be involved. Last year, with 5 clubs involved, and especially West Bloomfield's push, Scott Loney has been amazing in terms of getting community involvement with this. We had over 80 carloads of volunteers. So think about that. And most cars had 2 to 3 people in it. And that's just people showing up to grab 3 to 4 meals and deliver them to people they've never met, but are now part of their family. So it is rewarding, and I would encourage anybody to get involved with it.
We're joined by Renee Pathidis and Scott Loney from the Troy and West Bloomfield Rotary Clubs on the Oakland County Megacast. And Scott, in terms of West Bloomfield's involvement in Team Turkey in 2020 and these efforts, how far along is the West Bloomfield Club, for those that are listening and watching in our local area, in terms of getting the volunteers that will be needed for the delivery and the fundraising that's also needed for this great thing that's being done in our community and other communities surrounding us on Thanksgiving?
I'm pleased to tell you that I think we have the funding we need to put the cars on the road with the meals in them that we've committed to deliver on Thanksgiving morning. Unusually, money is not the issue. We do need the warm bodies. We need people to help us out. As I'd like to magnify a little bit of what Renee said, I do a presentation on this, and the last slide says, help share Thanksgiving on Thanksgiving morning. You'll remember it as the best thing you did in 2020. And I said the same thing last year about 2019, and I have the people from 2019 calling me up and telling me that I was right, and they're doing it again. I'm not calling them, they're calling me. So, as Renee said, it's not just a one-way delivery of service to families. We get a lot out of it by giving back to our communities and the families in the communities. We're all sort of in this together, and that's the way we approach it. We're sharing Thanksgiving as a family. So we still need to answer your question more directly, drivers. And you can go to our website and you can volunteer to drive. I'd also like to point out, if I may, that our website gives you an opportunity to buy a stylish Rotary mask, which is the latest thing in coronavirus fashion. Who needs Hermès and Louis Vuitton when you can get Rotary branded merchandise at RotaryTeamTurkey.org.
and you rock that mask. You rock the mask very well there, Scott. Very well. So, Scott or Renee, who cooks the meals and who puts them all together?
Let me defer to Renee on that one.
Well, so we're very fortunate to have worked over the years with Kroger as well as Meijer. So what they allow us to do is we plan what would be a full Thanksgiving meal. And a lot of people, and again, this was very eye-opening, and it was a life-changing experience for me, was delivering to families in Royal Oak and the outskirts of Birmingham and Troy, who actually don't have a stove. So the turkey itself is a pre-cooked bird that only needs to be reheated and can be done so even in a microwave. And then all the fixings that go with a traditional Thanksgiving meal, stuffing, gravy, vegetables, pie, cranberries, dinner rolls, are all included in this meal. Those other items are all something that can be prepared in a microwave or on a hot plate. So that's basically what goes into each and every meal. And both Meijer and Kroger often also donate a small gift card to each family so that if they need to get anything else at the store, they can do so as well.
So, Scott, if I can ask you this question, we heard from Renee about her experience in delivering some of these meals to some of the families. You personally, and members of your family, what has this meant to you to be able to take part in something like this?
Well, one of the most amazing things is, as Renee suggested, we get up early in the morning. I mean, we're actually at the Meijer or Kroger parking lot at 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning, depending on how it's organized. And just seeing my family get up that early is just an incredible thing. I haven't gotten my daughter into this yet, but Sarah, my wife, delivered with me last year, and probably will do so again this year. It's just a wonderful way to start the day. It doesn't impinge in any way on any other plans you might have, because I assure you, you're home by 9:30 or 10 in the morning, when you're probably about to get up under other circumstances anyway. But I've seen a lot of families get involved, bring their kids along just to show them what Thanksgiving is all about. It's not about you eating a turkey. It's making sure that your neighbors get to eat a turkey as well as you. And it's a great lesson for parents to teach their children, and for us to teach each other.
And, it's like you said, it's a great reminder for us to be grateful for all the things that we do have in this world, even in the middle of a COVID-19 crisis. So with that, which 5 communities does this cover again? And can people pick and choose the areas in which they want to deliver some of the meals?
I'll take that one if you don't mind, Renee. So Troy, West Bloomfield, Lakes Area Rotary Club, which is mainly just west of us in Commerce, Sterling Heights, and Birmingham. We should also mention that the Royal Oak Youth Association has been not a Rotary organization, but heard about us and has become an institutional participant. They gave us some funding, and no doubt we'll have some participants driving as well. And yeah, if we're putting our driver list together over the next couple of weeks, and it's arranged by zip code. So if somebody comes from a place, just tell us where you live, and we'll find the nearest 3 homes to you by zip code. They're usually pretty tightly spaced and pretty close together. So if people have a special, and we've done this before, people in my club, I only want to deliver in Royal Oak, or just as an example. Great, here are 3 Royal Oak addresses, go for it.
Scott Loney and Renee Paphitis with us on the Oakland County Megacast. They are from the West Bloomfield and Troy Rotary Clubs, joining us today to talk about their Team Turkey effort to deliver Thanksgiving meals to families throughout our local area here in the greater West Bloomfield community, as well as in Metro Detroit on Thanksgiving Day. So as of now, if people want to get involved, either Renee, in your club, I'll ask you first, in your club, how can they get involved in this effort if they'd like to volunteer, and then we'll move on to Scott for those in the West Bloomfield area that would like to get involved as well.
Actually, the easiest way to get involved is to simply go to rotaryteamturkey.org, because you can donate, you can volunteer to drive, you can even suggest a family in need, and it's all just there. You can even buy your Rotary fashionable face mask. Everything is on the site in one easy area. You can see photos from previous years of participation. And I do want to let everybody know, because I do think it's important with everything that's going on in this pandemic, that we are changing some of our procedures with regard to loading. We will take precautions. Everybody who's delivering will be wearing masks and gloves. We will be delivering to the person's home and not going in, which we have in the past because we're often invited in. So this year we will take extra precautions. If you want to participate, we will do our best to make sure that everything is taken care of so that you do not need to worry about that.
So Scott, let me ask you, if someone maybe can't do the Thanksgiving Day festivities, but they're hearing about some of the good work that you and the other members of the Rotary Club do, what should they do to join the Rotary Club? Are there dues, and how often are you meeting? And are you meeting right now virtually because of the pandemic?
I think our club is pretty typical. Yeah, we're meeting virtually. I think there are some clubs that have gotten together over the last 6 months a few times in person, but most clubs are doing Zoom meetings. Just feels just like this interview. What you should do is you can just go Google. If you live in West Bloomfield, you can go Google West Bloomfield Rotary Club, and our website will come up. And you can find out more there. If you're talking about getting more involved in Rotary generally, not just on Thanksgiving, yes, there are dues. They're not huge, but we do have costs to run the program, and there are some publications that are involved in Rotary membership. And just just find out, how the club works. It's going to be like a once a week, about an hour commitment just for the meetings. But once again, you get out of it what you put in. And if all you're doing is going to the meetings, that's good. You'll meet a lot of great people, and we would welcome you. But it's the work outside the meetings. The meetings help us organize things like this, where we really go out into the community and do the things we want to do to support our fellow West Bloomfielders and people throughout the area. But if you're specifically talking about Team Turkey, as we've been saying, RotaryTeamTurkey.org. I guess I should mention that your purchase of a face mask supports Team Turkey. All the funds go to Team Turkey. That's one, if you can't drive and you want to help out, we will be doing Team Turkey again next year. So we can start fundraising for next year. Buy 10 masks. You might need them.
There you go. Well, we're hoping that one day we will not be able to, we will not need a mask to leave our homes one day, hopefully soon. Although the vaccine, good news, it looks like a vaccine is going to happen. But in the meantime, we want to say thank you to you and your team for all that you're doing. And we're wishing you the best of luck on your Team Turkey event. Thank you for being with us on the Oakland County Megacast.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us and helping us.
Well, it's great having both of you. And like we said, a lot of people are not going to be going downtown for the Lions game or, the turkey trot. There were so many things in downtown Detroit that were family traditions. That is not happening this year. So this is a good event to be able to get involved in as well. Get the kids up, take them out, start them young. And have them know what it's like to be able to help other people. And I think if you start them young, they'll have a greater appreciation for that. So Team Turkey with the area Rotary clubs. Tyler and I are going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jonae Khaldun. I'm the Chief Medical Executive for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. The people who are at highest risk of getting severely ill from COVID-19 are the elderly and those with chronic medical conditions. That includes people with heart disease, diabetes, COPD, or those who have compromised immune systems. People who are in those categories should right now be staying at home as much as possible and not going out if it is not essential. If you fit into one of those categories, those are the things you should do. And if you have a family member who fits into one of those categories, you should be checking in on them and making sure they are following those guidelines. There's something everyone can do to protect the community from COVID-19.
Great to have you with us on the Monday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in the studios alongside Tyler Keith as we work to bring you interviews in the long format so that you can hear from all of the individuals directly about how COVID-19 is impacting organizations, our elected leaders, and businesses here nearly 7+ months into this crisis, and it continues. And the need is great. Joining us now on the Oakland County Megacast, we want to bring in David Foltyn. He's the CEO of Honigman and the chair of United Way Southeast Michigan. Thank you for being with us here on the Oakland County Megacast.
Delighted to be here. Thank you for having me.
So if we can, let's start off with United Way, Southeast Michigan. One thing with United Way, you count on so many in the business community and the employees to help donate to your organization. How is that going in the middle of this COVID-19 crisis?
Well, it's going quite well. There's a call for action, and we are really in the middle of it. It's through our strong partnerships with organizations that we're dealing with barriers to stability and resiliency, and there's a lot of that right now. We've actually raised a substantial amount of money. I think it's in excess of $35 million just for our COVID efforts. We, through some of our partners, have basically served about 17 million meals in Southeastern Michigan since the pandemic.
So, David, we're nearly 7 months plus into this crisis. How have you seen the need change and shift from the beginning to where we are now?
Well, I think at the beginning, there was an immediate need, but I don't think anybody fully appreciated how long that need would continue. And so the need has grown. We refer to our community as our clients, our customers. We really try to treat people in the most undignified situations with real dignity. And our group isn't ordering DoorDash for food. They're not in school. They're not in the traditional places where the community gets served basic needs. So I would say things have only gotten more intense and only gotten worse the longer this has gone on. And the pressures people have with children at home, learning remotely. Much of our community did not have the kind of tools at home for remote learning. We were at the forefront of delivering laptops and similar items to families that didn't have them for their kids. So things are really just getting worse and worse, not necessarily better, the longer this goes.
Yeah, now we're looking at a surge in cases, and there is a concern that we are moving into another shutdown. And knowing that and knowing how great the need is, how much does this impact your efforts to try to raise money?
Well, there's never enough. We have a very generous community, and we've done quite well. But then again, a lot of our donors are struggling. And when they struggle themselves, it makes it more difficult, more challenging for us to do well. There's a statistic called ALICE. It's the Asset Limited, Home Constrained Employed. And what it shows is that in Southeastern Michigan, you need $61,000 or so in pre-tax income just to stay afloat if you're a family of four. That means that 44% of the households in Southeastern Michigan struggle to meet basic needs. And the COVID doesn't make that any easier for these working families. So, everything we can do to raise money in this challenging time goes right back to the community. I will say that I wouldn't just focus on funds, although that's very important. We have an enormous volunteer network. And our volunteer network really helps us get into our consumer, get to the community, and that's growing. And always looking for more volunteers. It's time and treasure that we're looking at, and the need for volunteerism is even greater now than it was in normal times.
So, David, can you tell us a little bit more about the direct things that you are doing to help so many of these families? I know you mentioned laptops. What else does the United Way do for the people of need here in Southeast Michigan?
Well, we have our 211 service, which people call in when they have needs. They need to be directed to an organization. This is a particular time of year where 211 gets very busy. We get calls from people who don't have food around Thanksgiving. As we get to the holidays, we get calls from people who don't have the ability to give kids or grandkids presents for the holidays. So we do a lot of that kind of thing in the community, and we are consistently there to really try to get out in the community and give. We're very big in the student community. Education is very important for us. One of the things that Honigman has done with the United Way is the Honigman Academy. I think we're in our 4th or 5th year, and we're going to be virtual this year. Honigman Academy, we go to Cody High School, which was one of the United Way turnaround schools, and we get 17 to 20 10th and 11th graders who are interested in the law. And these are kids in challenged environments. They're handpicked, and we have a curriculum for them, which is about once every 2 or 3 weeks. They had come to the office. Now we're going to do it virtually. They come with their teachers. They come with some United Way representatives, and there's basically a curriculum, not a show and tell, a curriculum in what is involved in a law firm. Many of these kids are not going to go to the kind of colleges right after high school that feed a law school. Many are unlikely to go to a law school, but there's so many things they learn about the business of the law, technology, marketing, project management. They really get to see how things work. They do work. They're given assignments. They're given school credit. We've already hired 1 or 2 interns from the programs, but the notion is sort of a laddered learning, so that maybe you're not quite ready to go to a 4-year college, but you can get yourself into a 2-year school and learn some aspects of what it takes to get a job in a law firm, get the rush of being in a law firm, earn a living, and then either grow within the law firm or maybe take on additional education as your ability to meet your needs changes. So that's one thing we're doing. And United Way has a number of initiatives like that out there with high school kids. Another is early learning. We also sponsor something called TutorMate through United Way. We have about 90 of our attorneys and staff who read once a week online to a 3rd grader in an inner city school. At the end of the year, we have a graduation, we have certificates, and United Way sponsors those types of programs throughout Southeastern Michigan.
David Foltyn with us, the CEO of Honigman and chair of the United Way of Southeastern Michigan, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. And so, David, you mentioned some of the services that are being provided by the United Way, and that requires people on top of just funding. Right now, across the board, what does the United Way need the most immediately that can be provided by people throughout our community and our listening area?
Well, we really need volunteers, and the volunteerism could be at any number of levels. It could be helping us serve food. It could be manning our 211 lines. Just anything to do. It could be volunteering to do some of the TutorMate type of things. There's so many areas where we have needs right now, and again, anything we can get in terms of treasure or time are important. But anybody who would like to volunteer, get on our website. There is a volunteer section right there that directs you to the volunteerism area. There's also a donor section, but there's so much need we have to get out to the Tri-County community, Macomb, Oakland counties, Wayne County. It's a very gratifying thing to do, and the need is there and it's not going anywhere.
Can some of those volunteer opportunities be remote? Because I know we're in the middle of a new surge here in the state of Michigan. More and more people may not feel comfortable volunteering in person. Are there any remote opportunities?
It's a great question, and the answer is yes. The 211, connecting people to resources for food, childcare, utility assistance, medical assistance, many of those things can be done remotely. We're very, very concerned about our volunteers and our teams health and safety. It is, the words volunteer, you volunteer for what you feel comfortable with, but yes, there's lots of opportunity for remote working.
And does someone, if they're interested in volunteering, do they sign up? Do you have a minimum time that they can do it? If they want to do a one-time volunteer, can they do that? Or is this something where you're looking for people that you can maybe get on a regular schedule?
Well, we would be delighted, most delighted, to have new regulars join our very large team. We would really love that. But no, if there's one occasion to start, if there's somebody's interested in getting with their family and serving food, if they are not concerned about being remote, if they want to spend one night, grouped from the neighborhood, spend one night doing something to pull toys together, or laptops, or again, as I said, serve food, whatever the community wants to do, we embrace completely. And again, we do have that donor section and volunteer section on our website, which is very easy to get to. It's unitedwaysem.org. That's unitedwaysem.org, and there's tons of opportunities out there.
So, David, if I can ask you on a personal level, how did you get involved with United Way, and what has it done to impact your life?
So Honigman has a long history with United Way, probably over 50 years. And it's the only charity organization, community organization, where we ask for 100% support from our colleagues. And it's always been that way. I actually first got involved with United Way because I was the chair of a United Way agency many years ago. And I saw the remarkable work that United Way was doing, and I saw the great team that it had, the great volunteerism, being a recipient. And again, going back to this, seeing how people really in the most undignified of situations are treated with the most dignity. They are treated like consumers, and I became interested in it. Two of my partners, Alan E. Schwartz, one of the founding partners of the firm, and David Page, had been chairs of United Way. I got involved in the board. I took to it right away and grew into the board and had the great blessing of growing into the executive committee and then becoming vice chair 2 years ago and chair a year ago. I'm now in my second term. And what do I enjoy about it? It's just a great feeling to give back to the community, to give through an organization that is so well run. Darian is just a phenomenal chair and does a great job. Darian Hudson does a great job. The team is phenomenal. They're great to work with. It's a great board. One of the wonderful things about our board is we're so diverse. We're not just diverse in the way we look, we're diverse in we have people from for-profits, we have CEOs of big companies, we have nonprofits, we have foundations, we have labor, we have corporate, we have Democrat, we have Republican. We all leave whatever our individual views are at the door of the boardroom and devote ourselves to one thing, which is stability and helping what is 44% of our Tri-County area who are struggling to make basic needs. And within that 44%, a tremendous number who are below federal poverty level, which means they can't even put food on the table. So it's incredibly gratifying. It's fun. I can't deny that it's fun, but it's just really gratifying to be part of something like this. And I would tell you, being the chair is the same gratification as being a volunteer and going out serving food one night.
I love how you were talking about the academy that you all are doing there at the law firm. And I know that you said right now it's with Cody High School students. What do you look for in a high school student to bring them into this academy? And from hearing from some of the ones that have completed the course, what have they taken away from it?
Well, I think what we look for, and we rely on DPS, we rely on the school. We're looking for kids who want to grow. It's very difficult to be a student at Cody High. It's getting easier thanks to United Way's efforts and GM and others, but it's a challenge. It's a challenge to come to school. Some of the students live with other students, or there's not an adult in the house. There's safety, there's food. So we're looking for the students who really are interested in growing, who are hardworking, and who are looking for a laddered growing experience. And of course, who want to do something in the law. They're fascinated by the law. I think what our students would tell you when they graduate, it's an environment for them where people are earning a living. They're earning all kinds of livings. I think we may have 600 staff, and not all are lawyers. There are many people in accounting, many people in other jobs, and they can see at work, and it's not show and tell, as I said, it's real work. They can see at work people earning a living, and they can see people who look like them earning a living. They can see people who've come from all kinds of backgrounds earning a living. And I think it's a step forward in terms of mentoring and whatnot towards getting past high school and towards career or college, or both.
And any thoughts of trying to expand that to other schools as well?
Yes, so we've been having conversation with other large law firms in town about having them establish their own academies through DPS, so that we could, instead of having 17 or 20 students a year, maybe we'll get to 100.
See, so many kids, they just need to be exposed and to know what opportunities are out there, and to talk to real people in those industries, and to know that it's a possibility as well. It's been so great having you with us here on the show. Anything we didn't ask that maybe you want to share with the viewers and listeners before we let you go?
Not at all. Very much appreciate the opportunity to share our story with you and your viewers.
Well, thank you to you and your entire team as well for taking the time out to volunteer and to help so many people here in our community. The need is great right now, and we do worry as we go into the winter months and there's another surge. If there is another shutdown, so many of the people that are barely struggling right now are in those lower income jobs, and if we see a shutdown again with the restaurants and some of these other industries, the need will go even greater as well. So thank you to you and your team and all the people at United Way, Southeast Michigan, for what they're doing to help the community, because at the end of the day, we are all one right now during COVID-19 and the crisis, and we need to lift each other up. Tyler and I are going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast, and when we come back, we are going to round out the show talking Fords and the old. So for all you motorheads, you're going to like this interview. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test, and now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus-test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart, keep wearing a mask in public, and if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful, michigan.gov/coronavirus.
Thank you for tuning in to the Monday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. Boy, did that weekend just fly by.
It did.
It's
just
like
zipped right through.
Boy, but can you believe it? The election is finally over. They have called Biden as the president-elect. We still have a long road ahead of us, but the one thing all of us here in the greater West Bloomfield area can be grateful for is the incredible weather that we've had over the past week and is going to continue over the next few days. So there's always a silver lining. Sometimes you just have to look. Tyler's like, yeah. Hey, how was the football game on Friday?
It was a really quick, moderately quick game. West Bloomfield again nearly shut out their opponent on Friday. Unfortunately, the streak of, at that point, 4 consecutive games of shutting out their opponents did come to an end. There was an unfortunate mishap on a punt attempt that was a bad snap and put the other team in opportune field position, and what ended up happening was Troy had a 3-and-out and took a field goal, and they have an excellent field goal kicker. So 3 points were scored by Troy, but still a dominating win for West Bloomfield. They will now be on the road on Friday this week against Sterling Heights Stevenson. So it's a matchup of the number 1 team and the number 2 team in this particular district.
You know what's great is the teams are actually getting a chance to play.
Yes.
And I know that means a lot to the coach and as well as to all the players. So just about 20 minutes here left in the Oakland County Megacast. Joining us now on the show is going to be David Flatt. He's the executive director for the Ford Piquette Avenue Plant. We are going to bring him in on the phone line. Thank you for being with us today. It's great having you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So is the plant actually open to visitors right now?
Yes, we are open right now, although we had to reduce our days somewhat. So right now, we would be open on Thursday to Sunday, and we have guided tours at noon and 2. We're open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So that is a little bit different than we were open before, because previously we were open on a Wednesday, but until things settle down more, we'll keep Wednesday closed. And we did have another tour at 10 a.m., so we've had to reduce the number of tours. It's kind of difficult for the tour guides to give 3 tours in a row when they have to wear a mask, of course. And then we do social distancing, so we've reduced the size of what the tours would normally be. And then we just try to keep everybody spaced throughout it. But we are open. We are definitely reducing what the amount of traffic we're seeing, so we're only getting more or less 20% or so of what our normal attendance would be, because over the past couple of years our attendance had grown considerably.
And with that, so obviously it's the birthplace of the Model T. If I've never been there before, what am I going to see and what am I going to experience?
Yeah, so the Ford Piquette Avenue Plant, it is the birthplace of the Model T. So it was actually the second factory, well, it was the first factory that was owned and purpose-built by the Ford Motor Company. Now, they had previously rented a smaller garage on Mack Avenue, but they were only there temporarily. That's when they were building the original Model A. But it was so successful, then that's when Ford decided to go ahead and build the Piquette Avenue plant. And they built what we would call the letter cars, which ultimately ended up with the Model T. So the letter cars would include the Model A, the Model B, the Model C, the F, the N, the R, the S, and the T, and there's also a K in there as well. So we have the only complete collection of those early Ford letter cars that you will see on display at one time anywhere in the world. And our Model B, it's an extremely rare car. There's only 6 or 7 of them in the world, and it is actually serial number 1 for that car. So that is kind of like the main thing to see when you come there. But we also have Henry Ford's office. It's also located on the 2nd floor. And then on the 3rd floor of the building, we do have a Milwaukee Junction car collection. So those were actually other cars that were built in, it would be the kind of north end area of Detroit. So that would include cars such as Cadillac, the Rush, Regal, Flanders, Mobile. And then after Ford, Studebaker was actually located at the Piquette Avenue plant. And then we also have a variety of other Model T conversions, Model T Speedster race cars. And then the most important room in the building really is the secret experimental room in the back of the third floor. And that's the area where the Model T was invented. So there's a lot to see there. We usually have anywhere between 62 to 63 cars. Some of them are the same, but then some of them will change. And we've also added several new exhibits over the past few years as well.
Well, we are the Motor City, and the history of the car started right here in Detroit, in the greater Detroit area. But as far as, you know, you go to the plant and the museum there, and it's about cars, but how did this industry shape the Motor City into the community in which we are today?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was very important. And that's one of the things, too, is that when Ford later left Piquette, then that's when they went to Highland Park. Because the first 12,000 Model Ts were built at Piquette, and then ultimately they built over 15 million. And a lot of those were built at the Highland Park, just up Woodward from Piquette. And that's where the assembly line started. So in the factory at Piquette, they were all done by station assembly. And you had a lot of different ethnic groups that came to work at the factory there, and they would all work as crews, each one of them building a car. And one of the unique things about Piquette as well is that it was the first factory to produce over 100 cars in a day. And that was very significant. That was really when the industry started to boom. That had been in 1906. And that was actually the Model N. It wasn't even the Model T, which a lot of people wouldn't know that was the number one selling car for that year. But it's really what allowed for the progression for the Model T to really be produced in such great numbers that it was. And then when they moved to Highland Park and they started to mass produce the Model T, then that's when Ford was eventually able to put into his $5 a day. And that's what really brought people from around the world who wanted to come and get a job with Ford, because everybody wanted to have a chance to have a better life. And so that really set up the industry. And then there's also the fact that a lot of people who worked with Ford, such as Flanders and Hupp, and they went on to make their own car companies as well. And eventually Flanders became EMF and bought up by Studebaker as well. So there's a close connection between a lot of the different car companies that you'll see, even with Henry Ford's second company, because he actually had two failed attempts at companies before Ford Motor Company. He had the Detroit Automobile Company and had the Henry Ford Company. And with the Henry Ford Company, he had started to develop the car, but he got kind of too focused on racing, and so they kind of got tired of waiting for the car to be produced, and they brought in Henry Leland, and then that car actually eventually becomes the Cadillac. So that's a very interesting connection that you have between all those different car companies from early on.
David Flatt with us. He's the executive director of the Ford Piquette Avenue Plant, joining us today on the Oakland County Megacast. And David, earlier you mentioned that the museum is open with limited hours and some capacity limits as the pandemic has progressed, especially early on. And right now, as we're heading into, we have been heading into a surge of cases in Michigan and throughout the country, are there any virtual programs that are being provided, educational programs, or beyond that are being provided to the community or to people that are generally visiting the museum at this time?
Yes, we do have actually a 3D tour that's available. If you go to the homepage of our website and you just scroll down a little bit onto the page, you will see this 3D tour, which is really neat because it'll take you on an interactive journey of the museum itself. So you will be able to see those cars that are on display there now and see some of our new exhibits as well. And it's a very good educational tool. I've had teachers, even from far away as Maryland, contacting me about wanting to use this in their classroom. So I think it's very helpful to see this 3D tour. It was made by Matterport and BTS, and so it was a very good system. So for anybody who maybe doesn't have the chance to come see the museum right now, and I know a lot of people aren't able to travel, it's still a way for them to experience the museum, and then hopefully it spark interest to when things get better, they'll be able to come into it. And that's one of the things with the pandemic, too. We were affected like a lot of the museums here where we had to shut down for a certain amount of time, and we've had to enforce that everybody wears masks when they come in. And most public is very understanding of that it's going to be required when you come into the building. So everybody's just trying to live with it for now, and the staff's making through it. Our docents have been really good about it. I've kind of broke up now the days on when they come in and such, so we have a different docent for every day, which is actually also a good thing because when you come to the museum, you hear a different story from every one of them.
So it's worth visiting not just once, but multiple times. And David,
Yes.
with that, so many organizations and museums have had to change and pivot during this crisis and the pandemic. What do you think is going to be a long-term benefit for you and your organization coming out of this?
Well, I think part of it is what we were just talking about, too, with the online presence. I think that being able to reach people online, because what we saw is when we did go, where we had to shut down for a little while, is that we got a huge uptick in our 3D tour, which luckily we had completed early in the year prior to the shutdown. So it was before the pandemic even started. It was interesting because so the last 2 years were both record years for us. So we had over 31,000 people tour the museum for each one of those years. And then our January and February were the best January and February we ever had. So when the shutdown came in March, we were really booming up until that point, and then it all went to nothing. So we definitely had to refocus, and we worked on promoting our 3D tour, and we saw a huge uptick in the number of people that were coming to view that. So we knew there was still a lot of interest in the museum. And another thing that was difficult is because Piquette is the TLC actually counted us as the #1 destination wedding venue in the state of Michigan. So normally every Saturday we have a wedding at Piquette. But because of the pandemic, that greatly altered things because we weren't able to have weddings for a long time. And then we even had to transition to where we were doing smaller, what we'd call pop-up weddings, where you have, say, 10 people that will be at a wedding. And we started doing more photo shoots and engagement photo shoots and things like that, where people would maybe go get married at the courthouse, but then they would come there to do their photos. So we really had to transition until we can get back to a point where next year where we can start to do those weddings again, hopefully.
And you are a nonprofit, so how is this impacting your bottom line right now?
Well, we've done the best that we can, and the reason for that is because we do have a great membership, and we have a lot of them that have been very generous and to help fund us through this event. I mean, it's the pandemic. I mean, it's been hard. I know it's been hard for museums throughout the country, and especially here in Detroit. There's been a lot of difficulty, but because of the generosity of a lot of our donors, it's helped make us through. And then when we were able to start opening up or letting some tours come in, a lot of people have started to flow back through. And like I said, it's not as numbers we reached before, but it's enough that we were able to keep the doors open. And that's the main thing for right now, is that we just are staying open, and then we try to make it through this and get to better times, hopefully, and then we'll get back to those numbers like we were before. Because, like I said, before the pandemic, we were doing fantastic.
Well, and we are starting to see a surge and uptick in the number of COVID cases.
Correct.
What will happen to your organization if the state does go into another shutdown? How long do you think you could survive another shutdown?
Oh, we're prepared to survive another shutdown. But the question would be, if that does happen, on how long would it last? And then when it, hopefully at that point when it opens back up, on how quickly can we gear up and be ready to go again. And that's what we just have to keep focused and keep on doing online what we can. That's like with our social media presence in the last couple of years. It's actually went from, we had 3,000 likes a couple of years ago, and now we're over 23,500. So we've seen a dramatic increase in that people have a lot of interest in the museum and the history here, because Piquette is really a center of innovation in the automobile industry. It's where Henry Ford really got his start. Edsel Ford was there as well as a child, so there's a lot of rich history there. And we have a lot of support from car clubs as well. So groups such as the Piquette Tees, Detroit Tees, International Tee Organization, and then also the Model A clubs, and among many other car clubs have been very generous in supporting us. Henry Ford Heritage Association has also worked very closely with us, as well as Motor Cities Heritage Area. So these are all important organizations that have helped keep us going through these very difficult times, and continue to do so. And I would say even if there is another shutdown, these groups will continue to help support us and make sure that we do make it through, because it is such a historical gem, and it's important that it does stay open. And the thing is, last year, our educational programming had really started to develop very well. We were having lots of schools come in, doing some STEM-related activity days and such, and I can see when we can get back to that point again, then we will really be thriving. And we have a lot of big plans for the next few years. Unfortunately, some of them have been delayed because of the pandemic, but right now the museum is on the second and third floor. We have tenants that occupy the first floor that rent from us. So our plans are, in the next few years, is that we're going to restore the first floor, at least a section of it, to the way that it would have been, which would actually include the office of James Cousin, who ran the business part of the business for Ford, which was an integral part of the success of the early Ford Motor Company. And then once that happens, you're going to see even a lot better museum that we're able to offer, because we'll be able to increase our educational programming and bring in even additional vehicles into the building. Because right now we're to our limit basically on vehicles, so there's a lot of people who would like to get other vehicles in there, so we have to be very selective about what we bring into the collection, because the collection is a mixture of vehicles from our own vehicles, private collectors, and then from club members as well.
And David, just about another minute with you, and quickly, if you are still offering tours right now at this time, how can people sign up if they are interested in trying to get in on a tour, and do the tickets sell out?
Yeah, so we do. If you are wanting to get on a tour, you can walk in and see, but it's also good to do ahead of time. But one of the things I did was to make tickets available for sale online. So if you go through our website, that's Ford Piquette, Piquette, plant.org, you can actually buy tickets through us online. You can also buy them through Eventbrite and register a spot for that tour, which will guarantee you a spot. Our adult tickets are $15, seniors $10, and students are $10, and youth are $5, and children 4 and under are free to visit. And we are a Blue Star Museum as well. So,
Dave,
if you're active duty military, you get in for free.
Oh, that's great. And, we do have Veterans Day coming up this week, so
yes,
I'm sure we have some
And I will be
people
offering free admission for veterans on Thursday as well. So any of you would like to come in, you're more than welcome. We do get a lot of veterans and active duty military, and I thank them for their service.
Well, thank you for your service as well, and to you and all the members of your staff over there. As you said, it's a center for innovation, the birthplace of the Model T, and such a great reminder right now about where we started and where we are now. The Motor City is rich in history for the automotive industry. We put America on wheels right here in the state of Michigan, right here in our own backyard. So thank you again for everything that you do. If anyone out there wants to go and take a tour, try to get a ticket online. It's an important place to see. It's just amazing, the history. But what I love to see is when he said it's a center for innovation. So we have this younger generation and them using it as an educational tool for the young kids and so many people in the STEM group and industries, so that they can also experience the Motor City and not just today's technology.
Yeah, it's really interesting for them to be and thought-provoking for these students to be able to see the cars of today and look back at the vehicles at the Ford Piquette Avenue plant and see where they came from, because everything is progressive in this in the automotive industry, and that is what led to what we have today and what we will have in future generations of automobiles as well.
I would love to see kids have to try to drive some of the old-fashioned cars, just like we do with the telephone, the old Rotary. Put a kid in an old-school car, see how they do that. Can they even open the doors? That's going to wrap it up for the Monday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. Thank you for tuning in.